Hey guys, it's Carl. Welcome back to my full review of the brand new iPad Air, the 5th gen, and also a bit of a comparison against every single iPad that you can currently get. I've got all of them in front of me except for the entry level, which I accidentally left at home because I've been taking it to a lot of my architect meetings, but for all of the B-roll in this video, that will still feature. So that's the entry level. We'll start off first with the new iPad Air. Obviously my review of this, it's been out now for the past week or so. This is the best iPad that you can get, not because it's the newest, but because it has the best value as well. So let's kind of put the Pro, the Mini, and the entry level, which will magically appear in this video, off to the side and talk about this for a second. So this starts off at the same price point as last year for $599, and it's also the exact same design as the iPad Air 4th gen. So they were able to keep the same price, but still bring the latest silicon inside, which is the new M1 chip, which is found actually in the MacBook Air, I think the Mac Mini, the $800 plus iPad Pro. So the new iPad Air has the best internals that you can get, and you can see from the benchmark scores, it is the top of the line in terms of performance. So if you are looking for an iPad of this size, I know that the iPad Pro comes in the smaller size as well. The iPad Air is the one to get, and there's a few differentiating features which we'll get to, mainly the LiDAR scanner, so the camera sensor on the back. I'll quickly bring this up. You can see that it has multi-camera or multi-lens support over on the Pro. You've got the choice of the wide and ultra wide. I'm still not the person to recommend to take photos with your iPad, but there are that small majority that do, and that LiDAR scanner. So if you're someone that does a lot of augmented reality work, the iPad Air is the only choice, as it's the only one with the LiDAR scanner. But if you don't use it for those purposes, if you take the occasional photo, if you use your iPad for, say, FaceTime, I think having just the one lens is perfect. The front is also upgraded with the new 12 megapixel ultra wide camera with center stage. And I know a lot of people use iPads for FaceTime, for Zoom meetings, for team calls. So having that better front facing camera is definitely a welcome addition. And for the rest, it is the same form factor as the iPad Air 4th gen, which I said last year was the iPad to get. This was my favorite iPad, and I think I would recommend it to 95% of people out there. We have some updated colors this year. This blue, if this is the first time you're seeing it, I know I did an unboxing. I think this is the best color to grab if you're rocking this without a case, which I know most people don't, but I think Apple nailed it out of the park with this blue. It's super saturated and actually looks better than this Sierra blue iPhone 13 Pro / 13 Pro Max. So if you are a blue fan, this is definitely the one. You can also get purple, pink, or I guess they're rose gold, space gray, or starlight. And for the rest of the iPad experience day to day, not too much has changed in iPad OS. We still have widget support, which sadly is the most that you can push an M1 chip with. But if you're familiar with an iPad experience in the last couple years, you'll feel right at home. It's the best experience, it's the quickest, it's the snappiest, it's on par with the iPad Pro for a couple $100 less. And with that extra money, it's actually great to buy some accessories. So obviously we still got the Apple Pencil 2, so the 2nd gen. All of these iPads except for the entry level use the 2nd gen Apple Pencil. It still snaps to the top to charge. This is one of the best, if not the best, tablet / stylus experience that you can get. I'll give huge props to Samsung for their new Tab S8 Ultra. With that new S Pen, you get a 2.8 mil response time. On the 2nd gen Apple Pencil, I believe it's 8 or 9 milliseconds. You don't notice any stutter or lag, but the stylus on the Samsung is quicker. The Apple Pencil 2 is in no way slow. You probably actually have better app support and better app selection on the App Store versus Android. And I would still say on paper, technically not the fastest, but the overall use, I think it's still the best combo to grab. Still going on that extra money, you can grab a keyboard case combo. So this one is from Apple. This is their Magic keyboard. This is the super expensive one. So we'll quickly snap this into place. And if you're looking for an all-in-one iPad experience, and if you want to still tackle your basic productivity, I know you can type on the screen, but just grabbing an external combo for it like this. I know this one's the most expensive. This one is $300, but it does give you the full Magic Keyboard and an actual trackpad. I know that there's some other options from Logitech, but I think if you're looking to replace your laptop, your MacBook Air, your even say MacBook Pro, an older one, you could get by using this entire spec. Comparing the new iPad Air to the entry-level iPad, which starts at $329, which still holds its own and is actually some awesome value. I mentioned that I bring that to my architect and vendor meetings. I've been creating this house for the past year and a half, so I've been using it a lot actually. It's really handy as a secondary device. I usually have my MacBook as my main device. I use my entry-level iPad to kind of carry around. It's a bit cheaper. I don't need to worry about it as much, and it's actually just great for displaying images, for scrolling through my blueprints. And for typical basic usage and even watching content, I think the OG or the entry-level iPad still brings some great value. At $329, you get the A13 Bionic chip. You still get good old Touch ID. I will say that the design of the entry-level iPad is definitely dated. It's very similar to one of the OG iPad designs that we've seen. So it has a very large bezel, especially the forehead and chin. The screen isn't as vibrant or good, but if those things don't matter, if you still want an iPad experience, and I will say, because I still think iPad OS is still somewhat limited, you get a very similar experience on the entry-level iPad to the iPad Air and even to the iPad Pro. Maybe apps take slightly longer to load. Perhaps the most graphic intensive games will slow down a couple of frames, but for general iPad use, which I still think is a key media device for checking emails, for playing the occasional game, perhaps even a bit more app dependent with the Apple Pencil. And like I mentioned, the entry-level iPad still uses the first gen Apple Pencil. That's the one that you have to stick into the lightning port to charge it. That's one of the other differences. All of these iPads have USB-C to charge. The OG iPad or the entry-level iPad is still the only one that charges via lightning. It still though comes in at $200 cheaper. That does allow you to buy extra accessories like the Apple Pencil, like a case, for the same amount as just the iPad Air alone. So I think that really depends up to you if your budget can't quite stretch it, if you still want to have an Apple Pencil experience, or if it's the first iPad that you're getting. If you're a student or if you're in secondary school, maybe even in university, I think the entry-level iPad is perhaps even a better secondary device. I still think you can be more productive on something with actual Mac OS, like a MacBook Air, like a MacBook Pro. Having that as a second device, I think, is a really great option. And I guess we'll kind of switch to the iPad mini, which I think is in a bit of a weird spot right now. So last year, the iPad mini and the iPad Air were essentially the exact same. They have the exact same internals, the A15 Bionic, which is the same found in the iPhone 13, 13 Pro line. So it's a very capable device, but if I were to say, I can probably forecast this, because we have the M1 coming to the new iPad Air, I can almost guarantee sometime this year, we are gonna get an M1 iPad mini. So I would personally hold off unless you're a huge fan of the form factor, which I know that the Mac Mini, which I know that the iPad mini does have a bit of a cult following. It's great that you can still palm it with one hand, and you can actually use the Apple Pencil a lot easier to jot down notes, to actually draw things. It isn't as large, obviously, as the iPad Air. And unless you need it right now, like I said, I can almost predict probably by the summer or the fall, we will see an M1 iPad mini. That's almost certain, just because we've seen the exact same route follow for the iPad Air. I would probably say hold off on this one, and maybe the toughest choice you will kind of come to is the iPad Pro, which I do think right now at this moment doesn't make any sense to buy unless you need that LiDAR sensor, unless you're into augmented reality. And the other feature that the iPad Pro has is ProMotion. So that 120 hertz refresh rate on the display, it makes it super nice. It is noticeably faster. It makes the experience almost seem a bit snappier, but they have the exact same internals on the inside. So I mentioned that M1 chip, and just like that update coming to the iPad mini, there is almost certainly something new coming to the iPad Pro this year, whether that's the M1 Pro chip, whether that's the M1 Max, even the M1 Ultra, which we saw for the new Mac Studio, which that vid is linked up this way, which is a powerhouse. I still think the M1 line is overkill, personally, for an iPad range. Until we see iPad OS become a bit more versatile, I know that's a topic for another opinion, but that price difference, so $599 to that $700-800 range, depending which model you get, there is no reason other than those few features to buy an iPad Pro right now. So out of all of them, I would say the iPad Pro would be the least on the list, or my lowest recommendation, because you get a very 95% similar experience on the new iPad Air, which to me, I think right now is the best iPad that you can get. I hope this video made it a bit more clear and you kind of know which iPad to grab in the beginning of 2022. Have no fear, we will get upgrades or new updates to the iPad mini, to the iPad Pro, even to the entry-level iPad. I'm sure we'll all see new ones coming out, but for this very moment, for the beginning of the year, iPad Air kind of reigns supreme. Hope you guys enjoyed this vid, and remember, if you want to see the rest of the Apple stuff, Green iPhone, Mac Studio, links, vids up this way, make sure you're subbed. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll catch the rest of you in one of my next ones. Peace!